Um, all right, so while people start trickling in, I can start. So this is the first of many Breakfast Bee reading series to come. And I guess, first of all, I will give a bit of an intro and a welcome to those of you who might not know me or the kind of context that is uh, around this event. So I'm Julia Dahee Hong. I'm a Canadian artist currently based in Belgium. Originally, I'm from Vancouver, so we have an audience that's quite in different time zones, let's say. Um, so last year, I was part of a year-long residency at AIR, which resulted in an exhibition called What Stories Want, curated by Lawrence Otto, and is currently on view at Extra City Kunsthalle in Antwerp and AIR, which is in Antwerp. So this exhibition has three components to it: the exhibition, a publication, and a program. So through this occasion, I'm really delighted to be launching the first Breakfast Bee reading series, which is an event, which is going to be a quarterly event inviting a handful of artists and writers to read or perform their works. Breakfast Bee reading series is going to serve as a platform for sharing writing, active listening, and community building. Um, this, for me, is something that I felt was a bit missing, especially in the past year, which is one of the reasons why I decided to take this opportunity for the program to be making this event. Breakfast Bee Reading Series takes its name from a menu item of a restaurant that doesn't exist anymore. It's not open anymore, but the first reader, Natalie, will be guiding us through where the spirit of Breakfast Bee all began. So I'm going to be introducing Natalie now. Natalie Tan is a cultural practitioner and author of Simmer Down, a bi-weekly newsletter that reflects on food and memory. She is currently based in the UK, where she's writing a play on family, loss, and Hong Kong as part of Bush Theatre's West London's playwrights group. Okay, so I will pass the screen on to Natalie.
Thank you, Julia, and thanks everyone for being here. So I thought I'd just quickly introduce my piece. It is called Where Do We Meet Now? And it is about the restaurant Julia had just mentioned called Goldstone in Vancouver's Chinatown. It was listed for sale last year, and so writing this piece was kind of a way for me to reflect on the changes in the neighborhood that I had seen over a period of 5 years. So I hope you enjoy. Where do we meet now? I often wax poetic about the inimitable 𝐶𝑎𝑇𝑎𝑛𝑡ang, or Hong Kong Cafe, an institution that embodies the resilience and ferocity of Hong Kongers and holds within its replications worldwide the memories and practices that allow Hong Kong culture to live on in the diaspora outside a center of origin that's currently being dismembered. Most of my 𝐶𝑎𝑇𝑎𝑛𝑡ang memories take place at Goldstone Restaurant and Bakery in Vancouver's Chinatown, possibly the best 𝐶𝑎𝑇𝑎𝑛𝑡ang on planet Earth. This spacious, air-conditioned, friendly neighborhood restaurant where I can expect the comfort of Canto-only conversation with the familiar faces of the staple servers who ask me where I've been and tell me they never quite understood what my job was. It is there basking in the glow of cream and burgundy and pastel pink and teal at a level that Wes Anderson could never achieve, with a gigantic clock next to the open kitchen hanging over the kingdom, reminding you that you have all the time in the world. You can devour the best baked pork chop on rice you will ever eat. Open 6 days a week, Goldstone became the go-to place for lunch when one of us had a bad day at work, if it was so hot we were melting and we needed a pineapple cooler or a lemon iced tea, or if we were hosting visitors who immediately considered moving to Canada after a single bite of baked pork chop. Ever reliable, their good food was a guaranteed perfect pairing to good company. Nestled in their plush booths is where fruitful conversations took place alongside boisterous laughter. It was a place we would randomly see our friends and neighbors, or my favorite one-time collaborator and activist who is now over 100 years old, Mrs. Chang, cutting a thick French toast into 9 squares while telling her party, "Those people there run an art gallery. They're good people." It was a place where we could stay for literally 5 hours without being forced to leave, often chatting with the servers, one of whom I sometimes rode the bus home with. So color us collectively the deepest blue when on September 30th of last year, news spread online that Goldstone was up for sale. Internally, I grappled with the possibility that Goldstone, with its cheesy, charred baked pork chop, crispiest and creamiest egg tarts, its coffee-leaning yunyang, may soon be gone. At the center of this loss, however, isn't only food as nourishment for the body or the soul. Its disappearance is another branch, clipped off a legacy of migration and resilience that desperately needs not only to be preserved, but continued in stride. I worked in Vancouver's Chinatown for 5 years and witnessed the ongoing flattening of a cultural and community landscape so rapid that often overnight I'd see another unit vacated in haste or a freshly painted new business brightly illuminated for the oncoming gentry, while many of us fought and are still fighting against it. Events occurred that are just beyond the street of beef brisket hall fun was soup. It was always a thrill to walk in, order at the counter, and wait at the front of the restaurant where they prepared all the noodle soups, reminiscent of a Hong Kong noodle house. The quick motions of the chef clouded by endless plumes of steam that clung to the windows, appearing like a magician's smoke screen from the street. One day, the neighborhood air was heavy with thick smog, and word went around quickly that Daisy Garden was burning down. A few months later, upon arrival to the office, I was ushered outside and led to Golden Wheat Bakery at the intersection of Gore and East Hastings Street, a place introduced to me by the late literary pioneer Jim Wong Chu, who would bring over boxes and bags of what I consider to be home food, massive glutinous rice balls deep fried with red bean paste or savory minced pork filling, stir-fried vermicelli with shrimp, and the thinnest, most succulent chong fun. It was a spot that I'd stop at for a midday snack, buying a bag of fried goodies and leaving them on the table at work. And that morning, I stood across the street from it and watched it get demolished. The recently shuttered Golden Garden, or GG as we'd call it, was home to my favorite garlicky and clear broth noodle soup, lovingly known as HM5. We became such regulars there, we were once bestowed with a dish of orange wedges after lunch. And once, as I was doing my morning window wash, I was approached by two Jehovah's Witnesses who were searching for the best coconut buns they had ever eaten, certain that the bakery was on our street. I told them they were looking for Kiefer Bakery, which had closed a few years earlier, and they said, "Since you helped us, let us help you." And I ran back inside with my Windex. These eateries, gone for their respective reasons, provided their specialities: the best wonton noodle soup and braised duck, the biggest and QQest ham soi gok, the most divine coconut buns, and their disappearance caused gaping deficiencies in the everyday lives of the community. With this loss, accessibility and familiarity for residents and regulars gets chipped away, not only from physical changes to the built environment, but from the lessening of access to nourishment through language and affordability. With Goldstone, we also lose that which is intangible: sensations brought on by the sweet solace of the first gulp of a lemon iced tea on a scorching afternoon, arriving on the day the specials menu changes, or the unexpected joy of seeing someone you know walk in and inviting them to sit with you. Setting aside all the complexities that arise from another loss in Chinatown, the absence of Goldstone begs one very simple question for many. Where do we meet now? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Natalie. All right. So I forgot to mention earlier that this event is a recorded event, but all of the participants don't have a video or audio on, so it shouldn't be a big problem, but I just forgot to mention it, so I'm doing it now. So next up is Bláithín. I'll introduce Bláithín to you. Working with spoken word performance, Bláithín McDonald's work seeks to ground an intangible image to the specifics of time, place, and narrative. The act of storytelling is performed and intertwines with the idea of image making itself so that the narrative becomes images in the mind. Currently a PhD researcher at NCAD in visual cultures, her research draws on storytelling techniques to explore the ways in which the internet is shaping orality in an effort to unpack how we share and retell stories today. Bláithín holds an MA in photography from the Royal College of Art and a BA in Fine Art from Goldsmiths London. So now we have Bláithín.
They found a hole on the football pitch. Well, it was more of a crater than a hole, a long crack that ran straight through the middle of the pitch into the clubhouse and stopped at the roof. I guess it couldn't go any further. There was nothing left to crack. From the entrance, you wouldn't know anything had happened. Everything looked just as it should be, until they opened the door. You could see straight through the wall onto the pitch. The crack was perfectly centered. It had almost divided the wall into two. The strange thing was, the bench that ran all along the base of the wall hadn't cracked, but instead bent and buckled so much that it was no longer attached to the floor, but suspended mid-air. It was contorted, almost snake-like, curling towards the center of the room. Screws and pieces of floor tiles were hanging from its edges. You could see hair and pieces of fluff catching the light. Somehow, despite the breeze, it was all still attached. But it wasn't until the council sent up the drone that they discovered the sinkhole. The crack ran across the hole, making a semicircle through the fields until it reached the football pitch, where it straightened out and ended up in the clubhouse. They set up an exclusion zone and no one in the immediate area was allowed to leave their houses. As the weeks went by, more and more cracks started to appear to such an extent that the crater in the football pitch began to fork out into the car park, creating a fissure between the tarmac and the grass. On the news, people described it as being besieged, that they were trapped because no one knew if and when more cracks would appear. Well, it turned out, it was revealed, it was probably, most likely, caused by the collapse of nearby mining pillars, and therefore further sinkholes were unlikely to appear and the cracks would settle. Sinkholes are formed when rainwater comes into contact with a certain type of soft rock, such as chalk. Typically, rainfall seeps through the soil, absorbing carbon dioxide as it reacts with decaying vegetation. As a result, the water that reaches the rock is acidic. That causes erosion of the soluble rock layers beneath the surface, eventually creating cavernous spaces. The soil above collapses into the cavity as it can no longer be supported, forming sinkholes. One just happened in Rome outside the Pantheon. 40 paving stones collapsed, revealing ancient travertine tiles. But as the city was on lockdown, no one was there. No one saw it happen, which they said was lucky because there'd been these incidences in the past where cars had been swallowed by sinkholes. But this one was a first in the area. It turned out that they'd been mining gypsum nearby. They were transporting water in an old part of the mine, and when they removed the supporting pillars, it collapsed, causing subsidence. Gypsum is a soft sulfate material composed of calcium sulfate dihydrate. It's mainly used in fertilizer and is the main constituent for plasterboard. It's what plaster of Paris is made from. It was first used in construction in the Bronze Age due to deforestation. Neolithic settlers had cleared woodland for grass, crops, and domesticated animals. It's still used in construction today, but mainly in plaster and finishes for walls and ceilings. It often gets used as a replacement for concrete blocks as it's infinitely recyclable. It's also found in foods such as tofu, bacon dough, and mushroom cultivation. But in this mine, they were using it to excavate for plasterboard. There was a block of flats recently that had used gypsum blocks and it nearly collapsed. Residents were complaining of cracks appearing in walls and plaster falling down from ceilings. People could see into each other's flats through the cracks. Anything smaller than a pencil could fall through. The cracks were everywhere. People's ceilings had cracked in two, floors weren't even, doors wouldn't shut as the frames were so distorted. But the council kept saying it was settling issues, that the building just needed to settle. Then one day somebody's balcony fell off. It came straight out of the wall and landed directly onto the balcony below. So you had these two balconies stacked one on top of the other. Then the whole building began to tilt, so they had to evacuate the residents. All the balconies started to slant downwards, so the whole building looked as if it was tipping down towards the street. At first, they thought it was subsidence. They were digging an underground car park and they kept saying the building just needed to settle. So they drilled these holes and inserted these steel rods. So you had these vast rods of steel sticking out at angles like a game of _plug. But the more they dug, the more the building began to tilt. So they decided to insert the steel rods into the ground beneath it. And that's when they discovered the wood. It turned out that the whole building site was on top of petrified woodland. And because petrified wood are such accurate preservations, people often don't realize that they are fossils until they pick them up and register their weight. And as they were using machinery to dig out the earth, no one had noticed the difference. No one realized their weight. Petrified wood is the result of trees or tree-like plants turn into stone via mineralization process. And unlike plant fossils, which are typically impressions or compressions, petrified wood is a three-dimensional representation of the original organic material. There's this petrified forest in Arizona, and in the 1930s, people who had taken pieces of wood began to report cases of bad luck. They were so inundated with letters along with the returned pieces of wood that there's a museum dedicated to it. One of the local newspapers reported it, and the same thing started to happen on the building site, to such an extent that the developers had to agree to leave it there. So you have all these pieces of petrified wood in the communal garden. The largest piece has been put into a glass case as some kind of centerpiece, and the rest is just scattered around and used as seating. The underground car park is beneath it all. And it was around the same time that we found some in our garden. They were digging a trench for the Wi-Fi cable. They got about halfway around the house, and that's when they found the wood. But they didn't remove it. Instead, they just laid the Wi-Fi cable over the top and covered it back over with earth. So you have this Wi-Fi cable that runs all along the perimeter of the house, over the petrified wood and into the living room. They actually ended up doing an archaeological dig on the football pitch. There'd been these incidences all across the country where, as a result of the continued heat wave and drought, meteorologists and archaeologists had made these drone discoveries of ring forts and crop marks in Roman towns that hadn't been known to exist before. Particularly on farmland, circle shapes began to appear, which turned out to be the outlines of passage tombs from the Neolithic area. And as sinkholes occur in cavernous places such as Rome, they thought that perhaps there was more to this sinkhole than just the nearby mine. So they set up a dig. But they didn't find anything noteworthy, so they decided to cover the sinkhole, the crater and the crack with this wire mesh and turn it into farmland. They released all these sheep, but then one of the sheep fell down through the wire mesh into the crater, so they had to close off the area again. They removed all the wire mesh, and now there's a tree growing out of the crater. You can see the tops of its leaves just above the sinkhole. Its leaves are almost flush with the grass.
All right, thank you, Bláithín. So next up here I have is Marika. Marika Vandekraats is a Canadian artist working between sculpture, performance, and writing. Her practice interrogates objects as form and living body within the passage of time. Through considering how material surfaces hold and reveal traces of history, Marika reframes these object stories to reflect the human and non-human relations in the making. She is currently pursuing an MA focused on critical theory at the Dutch Art Institute. Marika.
Thank you, Julia. I just wanted to say that the text I'm about to read is also included in the recent publication for What Stories Want. When I was invited to contribute to this publication from Julia, we were having a lot of conversations at that time, mostly venting about shit jobs that we were working in like restaurants and hospitality. So the story I'm reading is kind of coming from that time, looking back and facing the kind of existentialism that comes after you graduate university, but also with being a dishwasher. Okay. Noticing the way my body shifted to match the machine, shoulders arched over, loading up, 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 hunching over the blue tray. Taking a step back and straighten up, low back flexed, reaching upwards and grabbing the greased metal handle tight, pulling down. A click, a pause, then the rumble of water. Staring back at the reflection on the shiny silver of its casing, my slick greased forehead shining back. I worked as a dishwasher at a rotisserie chicken restaurant while living abroad on a working holiday visa in the Netherlands. Not having mastered enough of the Dutch language to get me a front of house hospitality job, the dish pit seemed like the best option, but it wasn't so bad. I played music from my phone placed in bowls. I could eat fries whenever the boss wasn't around. A beer always awaited me at the end of the night when I would sit with the servers, smoking menthol cigarettes, listening to the complaints about the day's customers. Most of the conversations in Dutch, my mind would try to follow the few words I could recognize. Klein, door, tide. The dinner rush would feel strenuous, an endless pile of red glaze smeared stacked plates. When it felt like there was no more room for stacking more, someone would shift the plates and begin a new tower for me to tackle. Tensions would run high when our small spoon supply was low. At the back, the manager frantically yelling, "Little spoons!" As if someone was bleeding out and their only chance for survival would be found in the little spoons that stirred their coffee. The thing that filled my time was stacking dishes in the most logical ways. How many bowls could fit this way versus that, facing north, facing east? Concave embraces between ceramics made to fit into one another. Which dishes were easiest to stack without risking breaking, and how many of them could I carry at once? 10 plates? Try stacking 3 more, then add the short stack of smaller plates on top. Numbers filling my head. How many seconds till I can handle dishes hot out of the machine without searing my fingertips? These endurance tests gave me goals in my monotony. Push it to the limit, keep it coming. Don't stop till you reach the top. I felt my strengths from the night before linger in my wrists the following morning, aching as I brushed my teeth side to side and up and down. It was at this time that mysticism took over, a review of oneself through the calculations one was born with. Venus and Scorpio in the 5th house. This is how you love, deeply and passionately. O negative blood, you're courageous, outgoing, daring. You listen to your intuition and you follow your gut. The lines on my palm were telling me something too. With careful review, I look at Cairo's Book of Palmistry, flipping between the pages of the book and my outstretched palms, deep lines revealed. Heartline. Yes, this looks good. I'm good in this. I can be sure that I have great dreams and love is there. Headline. Forking off faintly at the end, but deep and strong where it should be. Just right. Fate line. Where is my fate line? I stare at the marks of fray, looking like birds with wings that soar off too far. Is that mark there an island or a chain? Where is it going? Following a mark that could be it until it connects with another in a confused curve. Or is that a cross? Fixated on this impossible read, I feared my lack of fate. The next night, my hands, raw from another shift, start to look different to how they looked at the beginning of the night. Dried out skin reveals new lines formed from the greasy agitations in hot water. Skin white pink, pruny. My mother is a paralegal, not out of passion, but out of practicalities. She attended night school when my brother and I were young, knowing the path would be the fastest to a career after her studies. At the end of each workday, her hands would be covered in paper cuts, little snips between and around her fingers when she shuffled through the piles of documents for signings, wills, and testaments. Her hands would sting as she sliced onions for our dinner, casserole with enough for leftovers. With each busy Saturday night that passed by, my lines were changing. New rough peaks informed by the way I gripped at the steel scrubber, skin peeling from dried hands after hours of washing. One night, the manager broke a wine glass in the dish pit. He told me to be careful, pointing out to a pile of shards that sat on the counter. A few minutes later, being crowded by a rush of dishes coming my way, I understood the broken glass was my responsibility. That be careful meant be careful while you're cleaning it up. An awkward grip made for a small cut on my palm. Not too deep, not too long, but needing a bandage to keep the blood from mixing with red chili sauces on the plates. Wondering if the cut would become a scar, I began to worry how the job was shifting the present future in my palms. Could a job change my future? Yes, of course it could. On a Wednesday shift, one of the calmer nights in the week, one of the servers was asking me what brought me to Rotterdam, if I was studying. I explained to her that I had already finished school. I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts, like what G is studying right now, but at a different school. Oh, cool. Metal fork tapping, disposing of the remains of another meal in the bin. So what are you doing with your degree? The question came from barely invested curiosity, small talk. My apron was soaked in dishwater. I stared at her blankly while she arranged the coffee cups in neat stacks. The silence filled with customers' cutlery cutting into their entree, kitchen staff opening and closing the squeaking doors to the oven, rotating spits lined with turning chickens evenly baked. She stacked cups in equally spaced rhythms. 1, 2, 3, 4. I threw back. Yeah, I'm doing what I studied. She looked at me for a moment, smiled awkwardly, and then returned to the dining room. The next time she returned, plates filled with chicken carcasses, scraping bones into the bin. Her long red ponytail dangled over her shoulder, briskly touching the dirty plates on the counter without her noticing. Hairs mixing with the grease, waiting to be washed away. I said nothing and continued scrubbing the pot in the sink. Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Marika. That was great. There we go. So, so the next reader up is Dagmar. I'll introduce you to Dagmar. Dagmar Bosma is a trans artist, writer, and cultural programmer working around notions of queer failure, entropy, and erosion. They are interested in the ways material is charged, shaped, and transformed through processes of decay and practices of passing on. Dagmar's art practice often takes found and gleaned objects as the starting point for sculptural environments that pay attention to the object's auratic and poetic qualities, as well as to the object's entanglement with its place of finding and its socio-political context. Dagmar is undertaking a master's degree in fine art at the 𝐵𝓇𝑒𝒶𝓀 Institute in Rotterdam, where they are also based, and are currently writing their thesis on rust and ruination. Welcome, Dagmar.
My non-binary name is bread. My non-binary name is sexual. My non-binary name is Nils. My non-binary name is Twig. My non-binary name is Twig. My non-binary name is Bucket. My non-binary name is Opossum. My non-binary name is Knife. My non-binary name is Toaster. My non-binary name is Toaster. My non-binary name is Plank. My non-binary name is Spoon. My non-binary name is Mittens. My non-binary name is Butter. My non-binary name is Butter. My non-binary name is Butter. My non-binary name is Rockets. My non-binary name is Fern. My non-binary name is Brick. My non-binary name is Laser. My non-binary name is Laser. My non-binary name is Race Car. My non-binary name is Beans. My non-binary name is Nugget. My non-binary name is Moss. My non-binary name is Moss. My non-binary name is Health Pipe. My non-binary name is Rock. My non-binary name is Banjo. My non-binary name is Rats. My non-binary name is Rats. My non-binary name is Rats. My non-binary name is Strawberry. My non-binary name is Trinket. My non-binary name is Pillow. My non-binary name is Fork. My non-binary name is Fork. My non-binary name is Fork. My non-binary name is Socks. My non-binary name is Scarf. My non-binary name is Kazoo. My non-binary name is eggs. My non-binary name is eggs. My non-binary name is eggs. My non-binary name is limo. My non-binary name is frog. My non-binary name is moose. My non-binary name is basil. My non-binary name is maggot. 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 I tend to rust like one would tend to a trampled garden. I keep it wet. A body requires daily upkeep to hold together. A body requires daily upkeep to transform. Doesn't matter if it's a body or a garden, it requires constant upkeep. When you say stable, you think holding together, not falling apart. All man-made metals are unstable and have a tendency to revert to their stable mineral forms. I thought I was stable until the house across the street was thrown out of its own windows. I listened to Tori Amos nonstop while putting the bodies together. If Rust would be a pop star, she would be Tori Amos, and not just because of the red hair. I listened to her album Boys for Pele over and over while dyeing scraps of fabric with rust. I bet a lot of people are annoyed by Amos' persistent and dramatic display of her own falling apart. Her brand is that of the femme hysteric. She doesn't turn off. She enters the piano store and plays all the pianos wide-legged. She describes how silver threads of divine inspiration reach down from the heavens through her body and exit out of her vagina. Even as I grow closer and closer to masculinity, I will never abandon, never betray, never not be in awe of the power of feminine lamentation, like that of Tori Amos and Hildegard von Bingen. My friend's mom put some metal fencing around her garden. The fence was wrought iron, of the type with those romantic swirls. It looked cute, but something wasn't quite right about it. You could tell the fence came fresh out of the factory. It was cold, hard, and flawless. It had not seen time. It had not experienced anything. It had not lived a day. It was missing a little rust, a little corrosion, a little wornness. So my friend's mom's husband brought along his hunting buddies one day, and they pissed all over the fence in unison.
So that was Dagmar. Thank you. And next up, we have Christian Vistan, and I'll introduce Christian to you. Christian Vistan is a Filipino-Canadian artist from the peninsula now known as Bataan, Philippines, currently living on unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, tsleil and Tawasan nations. He makes paintings, texts, and collaborations that are hybrid in form, folding in elements of poetry, translation, furniture, memory, non-fiction, plays, familial archives, drawing, and painting. His work is grounded in the inquiries into identity, lineage, and hybridity. And the materials he works with, water, paint, paper, language, among others. His work has been presented in Canada, US, and the Philippines. Recently, he and Aubin Kwan started Dreams, Delta, a room for artists, projects, and exhibitions located in his family home in Delta, BC. So we'll welcome Christian.
Hi. Okay, sorry. Thanks, Julia, for getting us all together today. It's been really nice, and I also want to thank my fellow readers, Natalie, Bláithín, Marika, and Dagmar, for their really amazing work. Okay, I'm gonna share screen. Yeah. So, oh, yeah. So the work that I'll be reading today is kind of goes along with this work that this print that I've been working on. So based on these dessert tins that are used to make flan in the Philippines. So these are tins that are made from recycled printing plates. And yeah, so you can see like kind of the remnants of text and images within them. And it kind of made me think about, yeah, just like kind of like my own, I don't know, like the things that are like within my personal archives and memories that like I kind of, yeah, like have put aside or like, yeah, like some of, yeah, like things that I've forgotten about, kind of like similar to like how these images have been kind of like repurposed into something else. Yeah, so like I wrote a poem to one of the images that like I've been thinking about a lot and like that I've been kind of, yeah, from my own archives. Channel surfing, the image dwells in my mind, soaked to memory. Anthropomorphized villainous sea cow sings her upset song, snowfall in our fishing village. I nicknamed this scene as I etched it to stone, dugong in captivity. In Wawa, we wash our clothes in the water. It is brackish where we wade. Clothes laid dry on the cemented banks, saline moment of cloth and concrete touch. In the shape of the t-shirt, the shadow glows. Trace this memory in a picture I made home. Translated again and again, laundry remains. In Wawa, stays, wet, unweathered. On the press bed, water, acid, and wind make an impression. The image dries an outline, and Toptic snow falls on the picture on the stone from my prime time memory. Snowball, translate, transfer, wash day to picture, to poem, to lithograph, to fantaserie, to poem again, to put to paper. Yeah, and then this next thing that I want to read is some poems that I wrote for Gabby Dow and Gita Torai Raja's work for an exhibition last year So yeah, shout out to them if they're listening. Hi, I see an H resting on its side. Between letter and scaffolding, icons hang. Dingbat. Still lexical, the letter holds up. The word holds up, floating. Sun, moon, names, noun announced into the air. Look, they got their trusses up, Karma says about a barn being built across the field. Later, a star appears like a hole on the face of the building. An old shape, a hollow glyph, a small portal. A picture of the cathedral reproduces it in printer ink. In the library, a woman carefully lines a desk and chair in newspapers, a quiet study. The cathedral was designed as a book. Sculpted columns and stained glass animate biblical narratives on its facade. On the desk, the woman sleeps amongst the dailies, her body napping on the letters. The library's curved contour nests her nook. I access the printers and scanners in that section. I sometimes attempt to rest too. The security guard wakes her up. There's no sleeping in architecture. I go back to my writing. She reads the newspaper. Sentimentality sours in the presence of the reader. Fruits revert to a state of green, unripe, or rot. Fruit sugars are emblematic of the weather that bore its plant. Fruits are weathered. Fruits wait. Sweetness, ripeness, or rot come to a pause. Fruits labor, labor fruits. A feeling cast into a memory, then a sentence. The sentence longs for a potato, an apple, and pieces of bread displaced in the process of rewriting. Now I am here, in the future of color. Garbage scorches late in the afternoons in my hometown. Burning refuse like leaves and food scraps return. The prefix re-enters the word. Bread rebakes, browns into croutons. Charred wood burns to soot. Mushrooms, flowers, and berries regenerate on the forest floor. After the fire, the soothsayer writes. Thanks.
Thank you, Christian. So that was Christian, and already the next and the last reader is me. So I'm going to be reading to you today my latest, longest short story that I wrote before making the sculptural work that I have right now in the exhibition. And it's a part of the publication of What Stories Want from a Publication. And I would like to thank in advance my editorial guide, mentor, Natasha Sobramian, who helped me through this text. And I present to you now, Elisa. Part 1, The Complainer. In order to receive good customer service, you have to be a good customer. My complaint was in regards to a type of major household appliance, originally designed as 2 separate machines, but now available as one, namely a washer-dryer. I always aspired to be a risk taker, and buying a washer-dryer made me feel extremely bold, and as if I was ever so slightly living ahead of my time. Disappointingly, within a month, the washer-dryer failed to keep its marketed promises, and I noticed that 2 separate walls in my home had been chipped by the company's incautious installation service technicians. I took a few photographs of the damaged walls and made a time-lapse video of my never-drying laundry still wet after 5 hours of the Eco Super Dry setting. After making several excuses, I pushed myself to contact the company with my complaint. I had difficulties finding an email address on the company's website, but luckily, their live chatbot feature sprung up from the bottom right side of my screen. I was immediately greeted by a chatbot named Eliza. I typed.
Afternoon, Eliza. How are you doing today? I would like to make a complaint about a purchase. Could you give me an email address? I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
The chatbot immediately responded with every possible way I could contact the company. Toll-free phone number, email address, mailing address, social media, and fax number. I decided to send an email, as it is my preferred method of complaining. After years of experience, I believe I had mastered the art of graceful complaining. An affirmative approach can do wonders. I began the email by recalling my previous positive experiences with the company and their products. I continued by outlining my issue in a concise manner and uploaded my photographs with my time-lapse video as email attachments. After sending the email, I was filled with a great sense of accomplishment, but this feeling was short-lived. Right after I clicked the send button, an auto-reply email from a no-reply email address arrived in my inbox. The generic email ended with a promise that their customer service department would get back to me within 2 to 5 working days. Today, a week later, I unexpectedly finished work earlier due to a flood on the floor above my workplace. With the whole afternoon free, I decided to take this opportunity to proactively contact the company again, but this time over the phone.
Your call is important. Please have your 16-digit order number ready so that we can help you even faster. You can reach us 24/7 online by our live chat, but feature on our website or by email. Your choices are our business. Your trust is our pride. Your smile is our guarantee. We appreciate your patience. Please stay on the line and our next available customer service representative will be with you as soon as possible.
I'm not sure how long I've been on hold, but my ear is very warm, almost hot. Waiting on the phone always makes me feel nervous and unprepared. I scribble down the topics I want to discuss on a Post-it. Finally, an ebullient customer service representative greets me. As I begin to explain the reason for my call, I am interrupted and notified that my call needs to be forwarded to the after-sales department. Before I can utter another word, my call is redirected. Even though I'm alternating arms to hold my mobile device, they're getting sore, and I'm starting to get quite annoyed. I wonder what else I could be doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon if my ear wasn't glued to a phone. Halfway through the chorus, the ringing tone rings and I hear a woman's voice. Good afternoon, thanks for holding. You're talking to the senior CSR now. How can I make your day better? Her greeting is robotic, leaving the last part of her sentence quite hard to believe. I give her my 16-digit order number and spell my name out, comparing each letter to random words like Delta, Echo, Quebec, Golf, X-ray, India, Tango, Bravo. With every letter, I can hear her type very loudly, as if she is trying to destroy her keyboard. I patiently wait while she looks up my file. Again, I hear her type something aggressively. Then she says it's impossible to file a complaint about the installation service because it has been more than 30 days since it happened. I try my best to keep cool because I know that no one wants to help an obnoxious customer. I point out that the damaged walls were already mentioned in my earlier email that was never replied to. In an unconcerned tone, she replies, "No, I can't do anything about your damaged walls. I don't make these rules. I only work here." There is a moment of pause, a short silence, where in the background I can hear erratic muffled telephone rings and a choir of faint chirpy voices of other CSRs. I give up on the issue of the damaged walls and proceed to complain about the product itself. Once more, I hear the CSR slam her digits on her keyboard just before what sounded like a definitive punch of an enter key. So in the products manual, you have all the information for troubleshooting. Have you read that? She asks. Of course I have. Even after watching several how-to videos online, nothing has worked. Shamelessly, she continues to say that my complaint isn't uncommon among these hybrid washer dryers. Is she suggesting that such problems are normal or even worse, expected? As if she was in a rush, in a concluding tone, she says, next time, don't put off complaints till the end. And for technical problems, try contacting the manufacturer. We only sell appliances, we don't make them. Have a good day, bye. And just like that, the senior CSR hangs up. In disbelief, I stare back at the screen of my phone only to see a reflection of my mouth, wide open. My face is now as hard as my ear, and I too start slamming my digits on the keypad of my phone screen to redial the toll-free number. Part 2, Chatbot Manager. I like my job. I'm happy to have a job where it feels as if I'm only losing time rather than energy. It is really just a job, if you know what I mean. My official position title is Chatbot Manager. I'm in charge of overseeing the company's live chatbot feature on the website. Chatbots can effectively answer most customers' questions, but when chatbots cannot continue the conversation, usually when people type in incomplete sentences or too many typos, I help the customers. In my previous manager jobs, making rotas for real people was quite an ordeal. This job is effortless in the sense that I never have to take on the hellish bi-weekly task of making work schedules for chatbots or be responsible for other employees, although I have fellow coworkers. After the last month's buy one, get one free promotion, sales have doubled. The company is busier than usual, requiring all employees to work extra hours. After 2 weeks of working overtime, my wrists were beginning to ache, which by the end of last Monday turned into a sharp pulsing pain. I managed to get Wednesday morning off work to see my general physician who diagnosed me with carpal tunnel syndrome. The doctor strongly advised that I limit the use of my hands, especially typing. After stepping out of the doctor's office, I immediately called the general manager. While the ringing tone rang, I crossed my 2 fingers, hoping that I could have the rest of the afternoon off work. My manager picked up and I reported to him that I was diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome. Trust me, I would love to let you take the day off, but the business can't afford that. The company needs you here. Hey, how about you work as a CSR in after sales this afternoon? You wouldn't be typing as much, and the work isn't that different from what you usually do. Just take the free computer across from the senior CSR in after sales. She can help you if you need, all right? You're the best. Catch you later, he said. Most of my coworkers now eat lunch at their desks, taking sporadic bites of food between customers on hold. On the desks, I can see several coin-sized tacky spots left behind by evaporated soft drinks and visible food crumbs stuck between the keyboard keys, which I assume is the culprit for the exaggerated volume of typing in the office. I forget the name of the senior CSR who I was introduced to during last year's staff appreciation party, but I remember her face and arrive at the desk across from her. As I take my seat, I meet my eyes with the senior CSR who is busy on her headset. In mutual acknowledgement, we both smile with our eyes and mouth the word, hello. During the company's customer service training week, all new staff are trained to recognize 10 typical types of complaining customers. The methods of dealing with each type are highly strategic. But when in doubt, one can always kill someone with kindness. I prefer a complaining positive customer over any other type. These types even treat chatbots with proper greetings, grammatically correct and complete sentences, and with as much respect and dignity as we do other people. The first customer of my shift, to my surprise, was a harmless, meek customer, the type that rarely reaches out because they don't want to annoy others. This customer is calling to make a comment rather than a complaint about an annoyance they were experiencing with an off-brand waffle maker that was bought off our website. Since this waffle maker is a low-end product, it only has a basic on or off setting, which apparently overcooks the waffle batter every time. I'm not exactly sure how to resolve this issue and suggest that this problem might be solved by turning the appliance off halfway through the cooking time, allowing the remaining heat to gently cook the waffle batter to perfection. The customer thanks me for thinking outside of the box before wishing me a nice rest of my day. The following customer on the line is a rip-off turned aggressive hybrid customer, my least favorite type. From the beginning of the call, it is obvious that his goal is to claim warranty over a broken microwave. Out of protocol, I ask him to describe exactly how the damage happened. He says that a fire started inside of the microwave while warming up a cup of coffee. Without giving me a moment to respond, he loudly demands that he be sent a new microwave of the newer model since his older model is discontinued. I partially pull the headset off my ear and adjust the output volume. I'm sorry to hear that. I understand your frustration. I'm going to try my best to help you. But in order for me to do so, could you tell me the 24-digit serial number on the microwave, I ask? I can hear him cursing under his breath while walking away from the phone, followed by a few grunts and loud banging noises. It sounds like he's destroying the microwave. He barks 24 numbers back at me while I type them in with my two index fingers using a coordinated pecking motion. I thank him for his cooperation and can now see from my computer that his microwave only has a week of warranty left, which is the most typical time warranties get abused by dishonest customers. I kindly ask him to email a few photographs of the damage in order to see if it could be covered by the warranty, to which he yells, "That's not good enough. You'll never have business from me again," before hanging up. I roll my eyes and take a quick washroom break. The flashing red light on the phone indicates that there is another call on hold. I take a deep breath before getting on the line. The clearly irritated customer explains that she had been on the phone with the senior CSR, but was basically hung up on. I raise one eyebrow in confusion and wonder if any of this is true. In a reassuring voice, I say, "Sorry about that. There must be a misunderstanding, but I'll help you. What is the reason for your call today?" She begins complaining about the long wait on hold, her damaged walls from the installation service, her disappointment with the product, her unanswered email, and the terribly unprofessional customer service experience that she just had with the senior CSR. I wonder which category this customer belongs to. I'm oscillating between a chronic complainer or an overly entitled high roller customer, but a hybrid is also possible. I attentively listen to what she's saying and react to her with a few O's, and I C's. After her monologue, there's an audible shift in her voice. She apologizes for dumping all of her complaints on me, acknowledging that her problems are not my fault. "No worries, I'm happy to help, and it's my job," I respond. I'm beginning to think that in essence, she might actually be a positive customer type. I was already well aware of the other complaints about this specific model of washer dryer. After all, it is a notorious type of major household appliance. Personally, I would never buy one myself. I decide to go the extra mile and contact the washer dryer's manufacturer on her behalf. The manufacturer's automated voice system announces that the current estimated wait time is 10 minutes. I asked the customer if she wants me to call her back after I contact the manufacturer or to continue waiting on the line. No, I'll be right here waiting. Imagine if I had to redial your toll-free number again. But I appreciate you going out of your way for me, she says. Usually I place the customers back on hold, but I feel like making friendly small talk with her while waiting to speak to the manufacturer. I ask her how her Wednesday has been treating her so far. She seems excited to tell me about her day, saying she got off work earlier due to some flooding issue at her workplace. Lucky you. I'm almost jealous, I exclaim. She says she's not so lucky as she has spent most of her afternoon on the phone. She asks me about my day in return. Instead of the generic, I'm good, I mention my visit to the doctor's office in the morning and how I'm usually a chatbot manager, but out of circumstance working as a CSR for the day. With an empathetic voice, she exclaims, I'm so sorry to hear that, hon. No one should be working with an injury. You're only human. You should be taking it easy at home. To which I reply, that's sweet of you to say. I appreciate your concern. At that moment, I receive a new email in my mailbox. It's from Microwave Man. I confessed to her that some customers were more difficult than others, describing my earlier encounter with Microwave Man as an example. People can be so audacious, what shameless fools, she exclaims. The customer's accurate expression of my inner thoughts make me laugh out in relief. Right? There is an image attached to the email. From the thumbnail preview, it looks as if it were taken in a tunnel. I open the email and realize that it's a 360-degree panoramic photograph taken from inside a burnt microwave. In the dark and empty cooking cavity of the microwave, I can see pieces of melted styrofoam. I couldn't stop giggling while trying to describe this photograph to her. And after a few seconds of uncontrollable laughing, I realized that she was not laughing along with me. Thank you. That was Eliza, my longest short story yet. So I would like to, I don't know if the other readers also want to come back on the stage, the screen. You can feel free to do so, just so we can all be on one screen together at once. But I would like to, thanks, everyone is here still, that's nice. So that's it, right? That's us, yes. So, so I would like to thank Bláithín, Christian, Dagmar, Natalie, and Marika for participating in the first Breakfast Bee reading series that I organized in light of What Stories Want. And big thank you to AAIR for the unconditional support, and also for Lawrence Otto, our curator, my curator, for helping me put everything together. Like always, it's really nice to have a group of people where you can not only work together and be friends, but also can trust and rely and have fun with each other. Something I think that is sometimes forgotten. So I hope everyone, all the participants who weren't really participating, but were watching us participate, enjoyed this fine hour of various readings that happened. And I hope that we can all gather again sometime soon for another one of these quarterly. So that's every 3 or 4 months, depending on what I want, but sooner than later. So I will keep everyone posted. I don't really have a website for this or anything yet, but there's an Instagram, so you can follow it if you're interested. And yeah, thank you, everyone.